I will be responding to Evelyn's response that California has an overall, plastic bags have an overall negative effect on California. The plastic bag evidence regarding California the advocate provided was inaccurate. First, Evelyn did not give sufficient evidence to support her secondary claim that plastic bags are detrimental to the environment. Evidence provided for this environmental claim by declaring that plastic bags take over 100 years to decompose, but I declared that all long-term plastic bag research is inaccurate and insufficient. Julius Lapidos, a staff editor at the New York Times, did the research and informs us that plastic bags have only been around for 50 years, so there's no first-hand evidence of decomposal rate. She continues to say that the tests determine on how well the plastic bags decompose based on how much carbon dioxide they produce. But when plastic bags decompose, they don't give off any carbon dioxide. Instead, they decompose by photodegradation. So this would be an inaccurate test, since they're only looking for carbon dioxide. In the research, the scientists said they're not sure how long it will take for plastic bags to decompose. That's why certain news sources throw out a 1,000-year long-term span. The life is just a media guess. To further discredit the advocate's evidence about how long-term the environmental effects, I inform you that the only long-term effects of plastic bags are observed in landfills. But landfills are not a reliable source for decomposition. A PhD researcher named William Rathie was the pioneer of a science of landfills and decomposal rate. In the study named the Garbage Project, which spanned over 30 years, the studies show that virtually nothing can decompose in today's landfills because they are actually designed to be stable and as dry as possible. Not food, plastic, or even compostable or biodegradable products can decompose in a landfill. He showed that when taken out from a landfill, newspapers from 1960s can be intact and still readable. The current research of plastic bag decomposition is not reliable because they are conducted in landfills. The advocate builds a chain argument upon the idea that the 100-year decomposition idea, saying that the inability to decompose creates pollution, and pollution creates plastic bags to kill marine life and wildlife. Research does not support the first theory, so therefore the rest of the chain argument collapses in on itself. Secondly, the advocate claimed that plastic bags harm the economy in California by offering a counterclaim that plastic bags actually benefit the economy. The banned use of plastic bags in California negatively impacts economic sales. A study from the National Center for Policy Analysts in 2010 showed that stores in Los Angeles County under the bag ban recorded a sales decline of nearly 6% over the course of the bag ban's first year, which is $120,000 of lost revenue for each store in the ban's first year. Amongst major decline in the economy, plastic bags can highly affect employment rates. Plastic bags provide more than 30,000 jobs. The same Los Angeles study continued that the stores in the bag ban also experienced 10% reduction in employment. That is 1 out of 10 employees being fired. Beyond the retail stores, the U.S. plastic bag manufacturing and recycling sector employs more than 30,000 workers, according to the American Progressive Bag Alliance. The advocate did not take into consider the entirety of the plastic bag industry or its effect on the economy. Plastic bags actually benefit the economy. Lastly, the advocate originally stated that plastic bags use a large amount of oil, but plastic bags are actually resource efficient in the production and recycling process. The advocate provided information about future oil predictions from the U.S. Energy Information Administration about future oil predictions of the U.S. and the supply of resources they said that the supply of resources is certain for the next 25 years. Future resources are uncertain. The advocate is asking for the audience to make the inference that the fossil fuels are in short supply. Then she provides the evidence that it takes 137 million barrels to produce 1 trillion plastic bags. These numbers are large, confusing, and misleading. The plastic bag manufacturing process takes nearly no effect on America's energy resource. I use the same resource the advocate used earlier, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and the organization took a record of plastic manufacturing in 2010 before the plastic bags reduced the number of plastic bags produced. The Energy Information Administration reported in 2010 that only 1 million barrels, which is 0.00026% of America's oil consumption. The source continued to report that natural gas also made the use of plastic bags only use 1.7% total of natural gas consumption in America. The data provided for the audience gives the awareness that the plastic bags manufacturing do not use all of our fossil fuels. In fact, it uses very little of our worldwide fossil fuels. Furthermore, I provide the following information to support the idea that plastic bags are energy efficient. A senior research scientist named Sharman at the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center led a research team to discover that plastic bags are easy to recycle back into fuel. He said, quote, "Plastic bags are made from natural petroleum, so we can recover almost 80% of it through distillation." Sharman's research team also discovered that the plastic bags could be used for, quote, biodiesel. He said, quote, "It's perfect, we can use in a drop-on fuel for diesel without the need for any changes." So when plastic bags are recycled, they actually provide more energy resources. I reason with you that the plastic bags use an insignificant amount of oil to produce, and the recycled plastic bags can actually produce oil. In conclusion, I disprove the environmental decomposure long-term effect idea, the harmful economy theory, and the oil consumption information the advocate stated. In all, plastic bag evidence the advocate provided was inaccurate. Thank you.
All right, you identified the proposition pretty well. Your general strategy you explained at the beginning is that you're going to demonstrate there's a lack of sufficiency or that the information being presented by the advocate is incomplete or misleading. So that's a good general reaction to the advocate's point. There's not really a preview of what the supporting structures were. We just get them as you go along, and I thought that was okay. It wasn't that hard to follow. The first point spends a lot of time talking about the inconsistency of information on plastic bag decay or how long it takes for them to decompose. There's a whole explanation about how they measure it differently. You know, it's an interesting point. I think your argument really should be on that landfill issue, which says we don't have to worry about whether or not they decompose, because if they're sealed properly in the landfill, they're supposed to stay there permanently, and we don't have to worry about them being in the environment. The bigger issue I think that the advocate's talking about are those things that are present in the environment that could present some potential danger. I don't remember what the advocate's arguments were on that point, and I don't know that anything that you've talked about here mitigates that. It challenges the premise of the how long or short term the decomposition issue is, but I'm not sure that decomposition was the biggest threat that was being talked about there. Like I said, I think you've got a better argument on that landfill issue if you would just adapt it a little bit. The economic harm argument doesn't really address the issue that the advocate presented, but presents a counterclaim, and I thought you did a good job developing a counterclaim on this particular point. One thing, though, that I think you do want to do is you want your arguments to do some contrast, so that if we're looking at $120,000 per retailer that's suffering in this situation, if we're looking at 3,000 jobs lost, if we're looking at a decline in sales of 6%, how do you measure that against whatever the economic harm is that the advocate talked about? And we don't really have any comparison being made on that point, and I think that that's a little bit problematic. On the argument on the third point, I thought you did a pretty good job diminishing how significant the amount of oil is and the resources that are used in this. I thought that you explained that really well. The explanation about how the statistics being presented by the advocate probably end up being misleading, and you put them into a little bit more context. See, this is the kind of thing that I think you needed on that second point there, but that was a good point. I also like the kind of counterclaim that says the plastic bag can actually be recycled, and then they do have a long-term benefit when it comes to resources. I thought that was an interesting counterpoint that addresses those issues. I thought you had a very good summary of the argument as well. All right, thank you.